Every day, roughly 20% of the world's oil passes through a waterway just 33 kilometers wide at its narrowest point. The Strait of Hormuz is the world's most critical energy choke point, and the ships that navigate it are as diverse as the markets they feed. From colossal floating fortresses carrying enough crude to fuel entire nations to nimble chemical carriers threading through coastal ports, this stretch of water tells the full story of how the modern world stays powered. These aren't just ships, they're the hidden infrastructure of civilization, and if they stopped moving, global economies would feel it within days. Here are the vessels that keep the lights on.
Very Large Crude Carrier, or the VLCC. This is one of the most recognized tanker types in the world, and for good reason. These ships carry between 200,000 and 320,000 deadweight tons of crude oil, making them among the largest vessels afloat. They are too wide to pass through the Suez Canal fully loaded, so the Strait of Hormuz serves as one of their primary exit points from the Persian Gulf. On any given day, several of these giants can be found moving through the strait in a slow, deliberate line, their hulls sitting deep in the water under the weight of millions of barrels of oil. The ULCC, or Ultra-Large Crude Carrier. Even larger than the VLCC, these ships can carry over 320,000 deadweight tons and in some cases exceed 500,000. They are rare by comparison, and their sheer size means they require deep water ports and careful navigation. The Strait of Hormuz, with its relatively narrow navigable channel, presents a genuine challenge for vessels of this scale. Only a handful of ports in the world can receive them fully loaded, so their routes are carefully planned well in advance. The Suez Max tanker. Built specifically to fit through the Suez Canal at maximum capacity, these ships carry around 120,000 to 200,000 deadweight tons. They are a common sight in the Strait of Hormuz because they offer flexibility that the larger crude carriers do not. After loading in Gulf ports, they can travel west through Hormuz, cross the Arabian Sea, and transit the Suez Canal directly into the Mediterranean. This flexibility makes them a preferred choice for oil companies moving crude to European markets. The Aphrox tanker. Smaller than the Suez Max, but far more versatile, Aphrox tankers carry between 80,000 and 120,000 deadweight tons. The name comes from the average freight rate assessment scale, which was historically used to calculate shipping costs. These tankers are widely used across the Persian Gulf for shorter regional routes and for loading at terminals that cannot accommodate larger vessels. Their size allows them to enter ports that bigger tankers simply cannot reach, making them essential to the regional distribution of Gulf oil.
The Panamax tanker. Designed to fit through the original Panama Canal locks, these ships carry roughly 60,000 to 80,000 deadweight tons. In the context of the Strait of Hormuz, they are often used for refined petroleum products rather than raw crude. Their moderate size makes them well suited for routes that require multiple port stops or entry into smaller harbors. While they are not the dominant tanker type in the Gulf, they appear regularly and serve an important role in moving processed fuels to markets across Asia and beyond. The LNG Carrier. Unlike crude oil tankers, LNG carriers transport liquefied natural gas, which is natural gas that has been cooled to an extremely low temperature until it becomes liquid. Qatar, one of the world's largest LNG exporters, sits just across the Gulf from the strait, and enormous volumes of liquefied gas leave through Hormuz every week. These ships are visually distinctive, featuring large dome-shaped or cylindrical tanks visible above the deck. The cargo they carry is highly pressurized and requires specialized handling, making these vessels some of the most technically complex ships in commercial shipping. The LPG Carrier. Liquefied petroleum gas carriers transport propane, butane, and similar gases that are byproducts of oil refining and natural gas processing. The Gulf region produces large quantities of these gases, and much of it is exported through the Strait of Hormuz to markets in Asia and Africa. LPG carriers are smaller than LNG ships on average, though they share the same general principle of transporting gas in a pressurized liquid state. In countries where LPG is used for household cooking and heating, these ships play a direct role in everyday life for millions of people.
The chemical tanker. Chemical tankers carry a wide range of liquid chemicals, including petrochemicals derived from oil and gas refining. The Persian Gulf is home to major petrochemical complexes, particularly in Saudi Arabia and the UAE, and the products from these facilities are regularly shipped out through the strait. What makes chemical tankers unique is their internal design. They contain multiple separate tanks, sometimes dozens, each sealed and coated to carry a different substance without contamination. A single chemical tanker may be transporting 10 or 15 different liquid cargoes at the same time. The product tanker. Rather than carrying raw crude oil, product tankers transport refined petroleum products such as gasoline, diesel, jet fuel, and kerosene. Refineries across the Gulf process crude and load these finished fuels directly onto product tankers for export. They are smaller and more maneuverable than crude carriers, and they move frequently through the Strait of Hormuz on routes heading east towards South and Southeast Asia. As demand for refined fuels has grown across developing markets, product tankers have become an increasingly important part of the traffic through the strait. The shuttle tanker. Shuttle tankers serve a specific function that most people are unaware of. Rather than making long ocean voyages, they are designed to transfer oil from offshore production platforms or floating storage units directly to onshore terminals or larger vessels. In the Gulf, where offshore oil fields sit in relatively shallow water, shuttle tankers act as the first link in the supply chain. They load crude directly from platforms and carry it short distances to loading terminals, where it is then transferred to larger ocean-going tankers that continue through the Strait of Hormuz toward international markets. The FSO and FPSO vessel. Floating storage and offloading and floating production storage and offloading vessels are not tankers in the traditional sense. They do not travel under their own power on regular routes. Instead, they are anchored at offshore oil fields, where they receive crude directly from undersea wells, store it, and then offload it to shuttle tankers or other vessels. Several of these units operate in the waters of the Persian Gulf, and while they rarely pass through the Strait of Hormuz themselves, they are a critical part of the system that feeds oil into the tankers that do. The coastal tanker. These are small tankers built for short-distance transport within a region. In the Gulf, coastal tankers move oil and refined products between ports in Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Bahrain, the UAE, and Oman. They pass through the Strait of Hormuz on domestic and regional routes, often going unnoticed amid the larger vessels. Their smaller size means they can dock at minor ports and fuel terminals that larger ships cannot access. For countries in the region that import fuel from neighboring Gulf states, coastal tankers are a routine and essential part of daily supply.